What happens when love collides with prejudice? Tonight on Mr. Joe's exclusive stories, discover how one cruel word at the dinner table changed everything and why dignity always wins. At the dinner table, I tried to steady my trembling hands as I lifted the glass of water. Meeting my boyfriend's family was supposed to be a moment of acceptance, but instead it felt like walking barefoot on shattered glass. His father's eyes bore into me, cold and sharp, dissecting every detail of who I was. The conversation had barely begun when he leaned back in his chair, smirk tugging at his lips, and spat out the words that would slice through me like a knife. "She's nothing but street garbage." The room fell silent. Forks froze midair, and even the clinking of glasses seemed ashamed to continue. My chest tightened, heat rushing to my cheeks as shame battled with anger. I wanted to defend myself, to stand tall, but my voice caught in my throat. My boyfriend's hand found mine under the table, firm and reassuring, though his jaw clenched in silent fury. His mother looked away, unwilling to intervene. In that moment, I realized the war I would face if I chose to stay: love against prejudice, dignity against cruelty. And though my heart ached, I told myself one truth: I was not defined by his father's contempt. But the words lingered, curling in the air like smoke, poisoning the evening. I could feel the judgment radiating from the other side of the table. His father sneered, daring me to crumble. My breath came uneven, shallow, as though invisible fingers were tightening around my throat. The roast chicken on my plate, perfectly seasoned and steaming, turned to ash in my mouth. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the dining room wall, every second hammering the silence deeper into the marrow of my bones. I had imagined this night so differently. For weeks, I had prepared. I had bought a modest yet elegant dress, pale blue with a cinched waist, not too loud, not too plain. I had practiced polite small talk in front of the mirror, whispered compliments about gardens, family recipes, favorite vacation spots. I had convinced myself that once they saw the love their son and I shared, their skepticism would melt into reluctant acceptance, maybe even warmth. Instead, I was standing at the edge of a battlefield where every smile could turn into a dagger, every word into an execution. My boyfriend's fingers squeezed mine gently, grounding me, reminding me I was not alone. His name was Daniel, and he was the kind of man who carried the world's softness in his eyes, but an iron strength in his convictions. I had fallen in love with him because he saw me, not the scars of my past, not the label society had tried to pin on me, but the person I was beneath it all. He had told me countless times that I deserved love, that my past did not define my future. And yet, hearing his father spit that word, garbage, brought every buried insecurity clawing back to the surface. Daniel's jaw flexed, his voice dangerously low. "Dad, that's enough." His father didn't flinch. He carved another piece of meat with calculated precision, the silver knife glinting beneath the chandelier. "I raised you better than this, son. You could have had anyone. And you bring her home." His eyes flicked to me, a look filled with venom and disdain. "Do you even know where she comes from? Do you know what people will say?" My blood pounded in my ears. I wanted to scream that where I came from did not matter, that I had fought tooth and nail to carve out a life for myself, that I was more than the rumors, more than the whispered gossip of a neighborhood that never forgave a girl for being poor, for being different, for surviving. But the words jammed in my chest, stuck like stones, because I knew he would not listen. Men like him thrived on control, on the power to diminish others with a single sentence. Daniel pushed his chair back slightly, his voice firm. "Where she comes from is none of your concern. What matters is who she is now, and who she is to me." His mother shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between us, but she said nothing. Her silence was its own betrayal. The meal dragged on, every bite thick with unspoken tension. I forced myself to chew, to swallow, to breathe, though every muscle in my body screamed to run. I thought of my childhood, of nights when I had gone to bed hungry, of days when my clothes had been secondhand cast-offs, patched at the elbows and knees. I thought of the names children had thrown at me, the way teachers had looked at me with pity or disdain. Street garbage, it wasn't new. It was an echo of every insult I had already endured, dressed in the authority of a man who thought his wealth and status gave him the right to measure my worth. After dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom. Behind the locked door, I pressed trembling palms to the cool porcelain sink and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My makeup had smudged slightly beneath my eyes, but the woman staring back at me was not weak. My reflection held a fire, quiet but undeniable. I whispered to myself, "You are not garbage. You are not less. You are enough." When I returned, the conversation had shifted to politics, business, trivial things that floated above my head like meaningless noise. Daniel's father avoided looking at me, as though I no longer existed. Perhaps to him, I didn't. But Daniel reached for my hand again, thumb brushing circles across my knuckles. His silent vow pulsed through me. "I see you. I choose you." Later, as we drove away, the night air pressing cool against the car windows, Daniel broke the silence. "I'm sorry." His voice cracked raw. "I thought maybe tonight would be different. I thought he might try." I stared out the window, city lights blurring into streaks. "He doesn't have to try," I murmured. "He's already made up his mind about me." Daniel's hand left the wheel and found mine, warm and steady. "Then it's his loss, because I'm not going to let him define us. And I swear to you, I'll fight for you every day if I have to." Tears burned the corners of my eyes, not from sadness, but from the fragile beauty of his words. For the first time that evening, hope returned, faint, flickering, but alive. What followed in the weeks after was not easy. His father's words haunted me, rising in quiet moments like a ghost determined to remind me of my unworthiness. At work, while sorting files, I would suddenly hear it in my mind, "Street garbage." At night, when I laid my head on the pillow, the sneer replayed in the darkness. But Daniel was there, each time, pulling me back from the shadows. He reminded me of the small victories I had won in life, of the resilience that had carried me this far. And slowly, something shifted. The insult that once stung began to harden into fuel. I thought of all the ways people like his father sought to keep women like me silent, unseen, erased. And I decided I would not give him that victory. I would not crumble. I would rise, and I would let my life speak louder than his disdain ever could. Weeks turned to months. Daniel and I built our own rhythm, our own world, separate from the disapproval that lingered at his parents' mansion. His father refused to acknowledge me at gatherings. His mother kept her gaze politely averted, but we stopped trying to win their approval. Instead, we focused on each other, on building something real, something rooted not in wealth or pedigree, but in love, respect, and shared dreams. And still, I remembered that dinner. I remembered the silence, the cruelty, the way my heart had cracked beneath the weight of his words. But I also remembered the moment after, the whisper in the mirror, the vow I had made to myself. I am not defined by his contempt. That vow carried me forward. It carried me when Daniel and I moved into a small apartment with peeling paint, but laughter that filled every corner. It carried me when I earned a promotion at work, recognized not for where I came from, but for the skills I had honed through perseverance. It carried me when, one day, Daniel knelt on one knee and asked me to be his forever. Even now, years later, I can still hear the echo of that night, the clinking glasses, the suffocating silence, the cruel smirk across the table. But it no longer wounds me. It reminds me of the fire I found within myself, the strength I didn't know I had until I was tested. I was not, and never will be, street garbage. I was a woman who rose from the cracks of a broken world and bloomed anyway. If this story touched your heart, remember, you are never defined by someone else's contempt. You are defined by your resilience, your courage, and your capacity to love. For more powerful, life-changing stories like this, make sure you subscribe to Mr. Joe's exclusive stories. Together, let's spread kindness, hope, and strength, one story at a time.